Welcome to Transforming and Thriving
with best friends Brooke, Stacie, and Neelia.
Podcast dedicated to women sharing their inspirational stories.
Hey there, everyone. It's Neelia, one of your hosts from Transforming and Thriving. I wanted to take a moment to reflect on some of our most memorable episodes, in my opinion. This journey, this podcast, has been really filled with powerful stories that I'm really excited about. So one of the episodes that really resonated with me was Stacie's episode. Stacie's episode is where she opened up with her post-delivery challenges, and I was deeply moved by her vulnerability. It made me really emotional. And before I share this clip, I just wanted to take a moment and really recognize how sharing these personal experiences can really break silence and help others feel less alone. So let's listen to a powerful moment from Stacie's conversation.
I think what a part of this experience was that had a major impact on me really is the whole process. From my conception to pregnancy, having COVID during my pregnancy, my traumatic week in the hospital, delivering my son when absolutely nothing went according to my plan, and the first few months postpartum. I think the whole experience profoundly changed me in many ways. I feel like the postpartum period is something I knew nothing about and was totally unprepared for. I mean, of course, there is such beauty that comes from entering into parenthood and reaching a new level of unconditional love that you've never experienced. But there are also nitty-gritty, messy, lonely, shameful, rageful, painful, triggering, terrifying parts, especially for someone like me who had not planned this most of my life and literally had zero experience with babies previously. The weekly prenatal checkups and check-ins literally dissolve into the ether once the baby's on the outside. I wondered where the support and resources go after parents are handed their baby and leave the hospital. I feel like this is a time when I believe they're needed the most.
Right.
Reassurance, encouragement, basic resources, basic help, validation, normalization, information, all the shins. All I got was a pamphlet on postpartum depression and an offer to call the doctor if needed. I accepted physical support and emotional nurturance from my husband and our doula. Thank goodness for them in the first few nights. Our doula had a nurturing and non-judgmental nature, which is exactly what I needed in my darkest moments of this early postpartum fog, as I like to think of it. Their love and help allowed me to remember how to nurture and mother myself once the season had passed. Even little things like bringing banana bread or bringing me water, asking if I need a little break to sleep and tend to the baby, little things like that were just so helpful. Some of the things I remember in those initial hazy weeks were feeling, I think I mentioned this, ashamed, but part of my shame was feeling annoyed when well-meaning loved ones wanted to come visit to meet our baby. It just felt insurmountable and overwhelming at times to have the energy to get up and greet them since I was recovering from a trauma, a major abdominal surgery, and our whole household was just under severe sleep deprivation, which completely makes you crazy. I now know.
Yeah.
My innate need to be a polite and gracious host was really hard for me to bypass and ignore. However, our baby constantly slept or ate or cried or peed or pooped. So any planned visit was stressful since it interrupted one of these and my desperate need for rest and a moment of peace in a crazy household with crazy hormones. I remember feeling really mad at myself for being irritated since I, always appreciated their love and support. And I feel so grateful to have such an amazing support system. But I also have had a hard time saying no out of guilt in my life. So I had to work on this through this process. I learned how to ask for help as I had no choice at times. I learned how to set boundaries for the first time in my 40 years on this planet. And often those boundaries were my mama bear way of protecting Aiden, this new little precious boy who had captured my heart that I, wouldn't have created just for myself. And then somewhere in the haze of all of this madness, crying, pain, loneliness, fear, anger at myself for not doing it better, I found my strength and sanity again a lot through a couple of things. Movement, and that's always been something that's really helpful for me. Moving my body, moving through things. Connection, and spending time in nature. those things grounded and balanced me, specifically yoga, Reiki, Pilates, walks, doing spin, sharing my emotions with friends, finally, crying, screaming, laughing. I don't think there's any one right way to go through all of this or enter motherhood, but I do believe withholding and hiding and isolating are harmful.
Mm.
Mother yourself, nurture yourself as you would a dear friend or your own child. That has helped me because I do those things better than myself. So seek out support from those who have been through it or those with whom you feel safe, loved, and validated. And just remember you're not alone. You're not crazy. You're doing your best.
So that clip truly highlights the strength Stacie showed and the importance of opening up. It's a reminder that by sharing our stories, we're not only healing ourselves, but we could also be supporting others. So next, I thought of Cecily and her insightful discussion on imposter syndrome. Before we play that clip, think about how so many of us experience self-doubt and how Cecily's journey can help find solidarity and confidence. So here's a snippet from Cecily's conversation, Overcoming Imposter Syndrome.
It's definitely not been easy, but I remember, and I will never forget this, and it seems a little bit silly, but it was amazing at the time. I was teaching it was like a bachelorette yoga class, and it was like one of my first ones. Because I've had the studio for about 2 years, and I think it was like right when the studio opened, and my friend knew someone that was getting married, and she was like, "Hey, you could host this yoga party." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, cool." And I was making sweatshirts at the time because I love fashion, and it's not necessarily that sweatshirts are fashion, but I just was like, I want to create something and like wear it and have it to be shared. And it was like positive affirmations. It was like the one that said like bloom from darkness and all these things. And so I went to this bachelorette party. I taught the class and they were all so lovely. And I was so embarrassed to ask if anyone wanted to buy a sweatshirt. Like I had this box, and I was like, oh, like I just won't do it. I'm just too embarrassed. Who's going to want to buy a sweatshirt that I think is inspirational?
Me too.
And I kind of like mumbled. I was like, oh, okay. And someone was like, what's in the box? They're like pointing at it, like, open it up. And I was like, oh, I just like have some sweatshirts, like if anyone. And this girl stood up, and it was so funny because this girl had a broken leg and she was like doing the yoga still. Like, I don't even know who this girl, she like stands up from the crowd. She's like, she points at me. She's like, never apologize for your hustle. And I was like,
I love that.
oh, my biggest struggle is imposter syndrome. Like we sort of had talked about. And so it's like, I'm like, who am I to give advice? But if this was my friend or someone that ran up to me and they said, what could I do? What could I do? It's just, I would ask them to close their eyes, unless they're driving. If you're listening to this podcast and driving, no closing your eyes. But I would tell them to, close your eyes and picture what you want. And the best thing is, if you can imagine it, I believe that you have it in your future. Like you already have it. If your brain can create the capacity of thinking about it and imagining it and dreaming it, then you've got it, girl or guy, you've got it. It's just absolutely amazing that you can create anything you want. I mean, we all started out as little blobby babies and look where we are now. And we're going to grow up and we're going to change and the journey's going to shift. And I just think that we're allowed to create the life that we want.
Listening to Cecily reminds us that imposter syndrome is more common than we like to think, and acknowledging it is the first step towards overcoming it. So moving on to Marianne's episode, she shared her traumatic journey from healing from a childhood trauma. So before we listen to this clip, consider how transformative it can be to turn pain into growth and how resilience really can shape our future. So let's hear a meaningful moment from Marianne's conversation.
I have to go back in time. I think we all do, right? I was a young teenager, and so I'm a driven person. And the reason is, when I was younger, I had a not so nice stepfather. And one of the things that he said to me, and it still is in my head, aren't you a loser? And, that just kind of sticks with you, especially when you're a teenager. And that has been my driving force for my success.
Mm.
I've been here to prove him wrong. But, the other day I was actually thinking like, Marianne, you know what? You need to find another you need to find another reason for your drive. And it needs to be in a more positive light versus trying to quiet down a negative voice that's been in your head since you were like 15. I'm going to call it trauma of my youth that I didn't have confidence. I still have that little voice in my head that says I'm not good enough. It is so hard for that voice to quiet down. So I do a lot of meditation, I do a lot of praying, but I think for me, as part of my healing, is being able to help other women, or male or female, of making them understand that they're good enough. So here at my firm, I am a strong believer of nurturing that. I actually just had a conversation with one of my designers. It was on Friday, and I hadn't really touched base with her because we've just been so busy. And I called her in, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? And she's like, oh, and so she was kind of sharing with me, the challenges that she was having. And I said, look, I said, you are good enough. You are more than good enough. I said, you need to own your worth, like step into your own skin. I said, you are working on the biggest projects that we have. Like, know that and have confidence in that. So I think these are the conversations that I have a lot with my staff. And I just wish that happened for me, that someone had done that for me. No one's ever done that for me. And I think that's why I do it for others, is because I'm trying to heal that little girl.
I think that's very brave of you. And I also think that is such a powerful insight. You were able to reflect back and kind of learn maybe from your negative experience. I think it speaks volumes to who you are as a person and about how this experience can shift and drive you, sometimes even subconsciously. And you mentioned a little bit about how that little girl or little voice is in there. So when that little girl or that negative voice pops up, how do you typically navigate that?
Oh gosh. I think as I've gotten older, I've been able to navigate a little bit better, but that voice still it still comes up. I mean, just the other day it came up again, and I had to make a conscious effort to be like, no. And, I mentioned that I've been praying a lot. And one of the things that I have started doing is when that negativity comes, I just pray and I'm like, Lord, I'm just giving this to you. Like, I can't do it. So you're going to have to do it for me. And that has actually helped me at that moment in time. And then I can move forward.
So, Marianne's story is a powerful testament to the strength of the human spirit and possibility of healing. Lastly, Erin Capel's episode really shared her experience of grief and the loneliness that followed. So, before we dive into a clip, let's reflect on the importance of community and support during a time of loss. Here is a poignant moment from Erin's conversation on grief.
So when I was 10 years old, my mom wanted to take my dad to the doctor just to get a checkup and some x-rays and some testing done. And they brought him to the hospital just to get all the imaging and everything. And then they saw that his lung was actually pushed over. So they wanted to keep him overnight, just to see like what was going on and, why that was. And he was admitted to the hospital. It was a very quick 5 weeks, 3 different hospitals. He was diagnosed with kidney cancer that metastasized to his lungs. It was very quick, and after 5 weeks, he actually passed away. So it was very, very fast, very quick, very unexpected. So,
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry to hear that. I can't even imagine. And just what a whirlwind of finding that out and just having things go downhill so quickly and just at such a young age. I can't even imagine how I would process that at that age. How did you find strength and courage during that dark time?
Yeah. So I was 10 years old when this happened. It was when he passed away. It was actually 6 days before my birthday, which I'm
Oh,
always like, so every time I celebrate his anniversary, I'm like, this month is like a whirlwind because I love birthdays. I love my birthday. I love celebrating. But like, that 6 days before, it's always a hard thing to reminisce on and remember. But I found, solitude in my family, my immediate family, my mom, and my two brothers. We kind of rallied together and got through it. I'm Jewish, so we sat Shiva, which is something that you do when you lose an immediate family member. You are in your house, you're not to cook, go anywhere. Everyone's supposed to come to you and kind of just bring food, and you sit around, you talk about memories, and it's supposed to be an uplifting time. So I had a lot of people in my house. So many people showed up, and my house was never not full that whole week. So looking back, it was actually nice, to have family and friends there. And it's weird because after that week, you're just kind of supposed to go back to your everyday life. I had to go back to school. I was in 5th grade. We're just all expected to kind of go back, and no one prepares you for such a tragedy, a quick tragedy that you're not really expecting to happen. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, which looking back, I'm so grateful for. She was there to do everything. If she was grieving, I didn't see it. I didn't know. And I know she was. Like that was the love of her life. They were best friends before they got married. Their love story is my favorite. And so looking back now that I'm 30 and I'm an adult, I'm like, I don't know how she raised 3 kids and continued to just rally on as if she didn't just, also experience a traumatizing event in her life. So, and I remember like going back to school, and my whole class got like kind of talked to by the counselors, and someone went to the class and basically said, "This is what Erin has gone through.
Mm.
When she comes back after being gone for a week, don't ask questions. There's no reason to pry or anything. We're all 10-year-olds, and however they did." But I remember kind of wanting to talk about it. I like
Mm.
went into school and I'm like, okay, most of you know where I was and what's going on. And I kind of wanted to share, like, yeah, it's just a weird thing to go through. And I don't know, it's just having a loss at such a young age like that. It's just, I'm never going to see this person again. I'm never going to talk to them again. How do I grow up now? What happens now? And who can you talk to about that? So it was definitely an interesting thing to look back on and remembering those feelings and everything that I went through.
Yeah, absolutely. And adults and children process things so differently
Right.
and grieve so differently. So, and I'm sure some children might not want to talk about it, but for you, that's something that probably would have helped you navigate things
Mm.
more or process things more. That must have just been really hard to act like nothing was wrong and go about your everyday. So, on that note, looking back, is there anything that you feel would have been helpful for you during that time?
Yeah. So I know I mentioned during Shiva, my house was full.
Mm.
When Shiva ended, there was nobody.
Erin's story is a moving reminder of how vital it is to be there for each other, even when the initial wave of support fades. As we look back on these episodes, I'm really grateful the incredible guests who have shared their stories, their honesty, their bravery, their vulnerability, their openness. And I'm so excited to be a part of this journey, be a part of this podcast, and share more stories with you in the near future. I just want to say I'm so grateful for all the courageous women that have decided to share these stories with everyone. And I just want to wish you all gratitude, love, and light.
To all of our listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of Transforming and Thriving. We'll be back with more inspiring stories on the first Monday of each month. Please follow us on your favorite podcast app and follow us on Instagram so you can be a part of this community and stay up to date with each episode. Please feel free to leave a review so that we can get your valuable feedback and other people can find these powerful stories. Check out our website as well at transformingandthriving.com. We're all in this crazy life together, so let's move through it together. See you there.